All right, here we go.
Mm.
Hello, and welcome to The Pouch, the podcast equivalent of having your favourite shirt ripped by a wait a while that takes a not-so-serious look at the week in Australian news and politics. I'm Gregg. Pouch merch is the best merch. Savage.
And I'm Jake. Compulsory voting and single nationwide voting. Oh, goodness, one more time. And I'm Jake. Compulsory voting and a single nationwide voting system doesn't look so bad now, does it, Far Wharton? On today's episode, we talk democracy deliberations, trade ructions, and foreign interferences, and so much more.
You've really gone for the Saturday up late with the Pouch vibe there, Jake.
Yep, 100% fruity.
And Jake, while we're as snug as a bug in this proverbial rug, I want to know, how many lobsters are you buying this week?
Yeah, that's
how many locally owned lobsters are you buying this week?
Spoiler alert: the surplus. So that's a heck of a lot.
I imagine that they're pretty cheap at the moment.
Yeah, well, yes, Australia is flooding her own market with lobsters.
All right. I've got to get to two things before we get to the nitty gritty tonight, yes. Jake. Really quickly, I've got to remember to mention the Politics Over Podcast episode that we did with the boys from Politics Over Coffee. They have a podcast. It's a wonderful podcast, and we did our sort of US. Venting and our US, discussions through those boys, and it was a wonderful discussion, wasn't it?
It really was. Sorry, I was...
Sorry, I didn't mean to... No, you have your drink.
I decided I was going to have a sip whilst showing quite prominently the Pouch logo. But to answer your question directly, it was a really engaging, tremendous episode. We started the Pouch on the premise that we both, you certainly, but ultimately we both, and probably many Australians, are highly engrossed by American and other, worldly politics, I suppose, but American especially because it does have, so many impacts on Australian politics in general, foreign affairs in general, and various other things. So yes, it was a fascinating chat. Look, I'd highly encourage listeners to check it out. It's on our feed as well as Politics Over Coffee, but certainly
it's not.
It's not. It's not.
No, it's not on our feed. I didn't know. Well, it was US based, so I thought I didn't really know. I thought,
I like it. Good idea.
They invited us on their show, so you can check them out. You can check out the whole conversation on their show. You can check it out on our YouTube page. Speaking of our YouTube page, we did get another Patreon this week, so it would be remiss of me not to follow through and mention them on the show. Apparently, they just go by the name Crisp and Crunch. And they went for the $5 one. So thank you very much, Crisp and Crunch. I've done a Facebook post for you. I've done an Instagram post for you. Shouted you out on the show, and a sticker will be in the mail this week. So very, very exciting for you, Crisp and Crunch. Thank you so much. The $5 a month will certainly go towards making sure that Jake gets the biggest microphone that he can get.
Look. If there's any bigger microphones out there on the market, I think it important that I have one to cover the vast majority of my face.
I think, well, you're going to need a cover for that cover before too long, surely. Like, you're going to need a sheet over that, and then you're going to
have a double
lampshade. Put a lampshade over the top of it or something.
No, I like the name Crisp and Crunch as well.
Yeah,
I'm wondering whether his name is Crispin, which it does appear to be, which is one of my favourite names that exist in the world. But other than that, I wonder whether the term Crisp and Crunch is a play on the great American cereal Captain Crunch.
I would say so, Jake. I would say so. Certainly.
One of the great cereals in the world for those who enjoy the roof of their mouth. Not a great cereal for maintaining the integrity of the roof of one's mouth, but certainly a great sugary treat.
All right. Now, Jake, we've got a new segment called In Memoriam because I couldn't think of anything funny to put in there. So we lost two this week, Jake. We lost two.
Before you jump into that, Greg, I just want to let you know you are popping quite loud.
Am I?
Yeah.
Like good popping or bad popping?
The bad popping, the kind of pop that...
There we go. I'll move it down there. There we go. That'll be way better. Trust me.
No worries.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
We don't want to go around popping, Jake. How's that? Is that better?
Look, that's my job as the resident Italian who likes to eat too much, particularly onion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll be sure to add the anti-popping cue later in the post mix. We lost two this morning. We lost two this week, Jake. Yes, two Pouch the Podcast regulars, two people who give us fodder. Very regular fodder. We did discuss a few weeks ago Australian Post CEO Christine Holgate, who had temporarily stood aside. She's now quit. Yep. Due to the Cartier watches affair.
Yeah, this to me was a bit of a shame on a number of fronts. Number one, she's not been found to have done anything wrong. Certainly nothing fraudulent. There was nothing to have been found that was untoward. Essentially, she spent a bunch of money of her own money purchasing a series of Cartier watches, $3,000, $4,000 odd watches for a few executives that procured, by all rights, a very large contract with a couple of large banks, which was essentially a move that would, greatly improve the fiscal position of Australia Post. That's part one. She did nothing untoward, at least as far as the investigative journalism has released thus far. The other reason is that she was, it seems, extraordinarily well liked on the ground. So by the coalface of Australia Post, the posties as well as the post shop owners and operators around Australia. There was a couple of news stories this week of essentially Australia Post owners, so shop owners that were sending in $5 to the Australian government in order to cover the total cost of those watches being procured. Essentially noting that both her business acumen had greatly improved the position, both business-wise and fiscally, of Australia Post, as well as that major contract would have improved the local outcomes for smaller Australia Post shops as well. So, a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a bit of a careful what you wish for situation, isn't it? She did admit that it didn't pass the pub test, which I probably agree with there as well. Yep. Particularly the way that it was being spun in some media outlets, Jake.
Indeed.
However, we also lost Deb Frecklington.
Yep.
We also lost Deb Frecklington. She did say prior to losing,
she said on election eve,
that she was going to stick around, that she wasn't going to go anywhere, that she was in it for the long haul. Who would have thunk that a politician could deceive us like that, Jake? My heart, it aches.
Indeed. Well, this was a fun one because only a couple of months.
That's super fun, Jake. I love it when politicians lie. It's like,
well, I mean, I just wonder what's gone on here because she survived a leadership coup, only a couple of months before the election was actually called, and she stood proudly in front of the media and said, "I will not bow down to the bullies." In the Liberal Party and in the Liberal National Party, and she stood strong and she maintained her leadership. She did lose last weekend, and she, during her concession speech, she did say that she would retain leadership of the party if the party allowed her to do so, but she did stand aside. I wonder whether she was actually pushed out, of the leadership, but nonetheless, she did lose the leadership and stated that she conceded. But yeah, look, it's an interesting one. It's an unfortunate one because she was, by all accounts, a strong and effective leader, not as effective as it seems the incumbent, Anastasia Palaszczuk in this case, but invariably Anastasia ran a good campaign, a good long campaign, and she was the recipient of very positive, favourable praise as someone who got Queensland through the coronavirus pandemic.
Absolutely, and I was really proud of our analysis, Jake, of the Queensland election there. So if you do want to check that one out, you can check out our previous episode. All right, a little bit of a warm up, Jake. We've got the Sydney Mardi.
You're not warm, Greg.
I'm not warm, Jake. I'm not warm yet. No, certainly not here in the Blue Mountains. It's like 14 degrees or something at the moment, and I cannot feel my knees. But that's okay.
You're wearing shorts.
I don't need... Yeah, I am wearing shorts. It's business up the top, casual down the bottom here.
Yeah, I'm the reverse.
Not too casual down there, though. Sydney Mardi Gras. Speaking of casual down there, Jake. Sydney Mardi Gras. Sydney Mardi Gras has been moved to the Sydney Cricket Ground to ensure COVID-safe celebrations.
Yeah, this...
Yes. Moving on.
Yeah, that's pretty well the story. I would say this is the 43rd consecutive Sydney Mardi Gras. It's a...
I wouldn't have thought, like, if someone had said, how many Mardi Gras do you think there'd been? I would have said, like, I don't know, 6. Certainly not 40, somewhere between 6 and 43, like not 43. Yeah.
Look, it's this is it's good news. It means that the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras will be able to continue its proud tradition that it started back in the late 70s around essentially protesting the right to be gay and lesbian out in public. Yeah. And of course they've broadened the church. They've added extra acronyms to the to the Pride Parade, and people and genres and
everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome.
Exactly. And that is really the premise of it, which is fantastic. And it is great that it's able to continue. Of course, they're being very cautious around the premise of coronavirus. We are still in the midst of a pandemic.
We are.
Holding it in an isolated venue means that they are able to both limit capacity and ensure that it is a controlled environment with appropriate social distancing, etc.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. It traditionally draws hundreds of thousands of revelers and international tourists. But this year, tickets will be limited to just 23. Oh, no, wait, that's 23,000. 23,000 tickets, about half of the ground's capacity, with organisers charging $20 for admission. So very, very well done to the organisers there for bringing in, trying to work with what they've got. I actually saw this week too, some of the organisers for music festivals have started these music festivals in people's driveways. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
It's really cool.
I'm looking forward to people driving all the way out here to my driveway to perform to the two other people in my
just to watch you juggle.
Area.
Yeah, and so what they do, so they have like a local neighborhood, and they get all the musicians there, and all the musicians go out into their driveway, and then you can basically choose where you go, and you can socially distance, and you can stay in your car and all that sort of stuff. It's pretty cool, and you can support the artist by tipping them via PayPal or there's an app on the phone or whatever. So that's pretty cool. So kudos to all of these people who are coming up with creative ways to continue these festivals and traditions, particularly in the arts, which have been tremendously hit by the pandemic. Yep. I forgot which story we weren't doing. We want to do this story about Anastasia texting Gladys Berejiklian. This was great news. My pen just rolled away. I got it back.
It's on.
Now, congratulations to Queensland for winning the state of origin, and that was obviously on Anastasia Palaszczuk's mind this week.
So, I mean, a little bit further back, a little bit more context. The tensions have been a little bit, it's been the relationship between the two premiers, Anastasia Palaszczuk and Gladys Berejiklian, has been tense for a while. Obviously,
that's right. And now Anastasia's been given a mandate. Yeah,
exactly. We've been given a mandate now to keep those hard border closures.
Hard borders.
While in contrast to that, Gladys Berejiklian has been, particularly the lead up to the election, the Queensland election, had been lambasting the premier of Queensland, Anastasia Palaszczuk, for months, saying you're crazy. Open the border.
That doesn't sound like a lambasting.
Well, look, when that happens once, it's a polite, it's a polite request. When it happens, I think Anastasia was saying it's something in the order of about 65 odd times that Gladys either personally phoned the premier or went did a doorstop interview and lambasted Anastasia
All right. So what happened here? So we had the state of origin. Queensland.
Well,
kicked New South Wales's butt.
It's just prior to that. So I'm setting the stage. There's hard tensions here. There's hard tensions.
There's hard tensions because of hard borders, Jake.
Exactly, hard tensions because of hard borders. And Gladys sent Anastasia a text message. Actually, let's do this in a bit of teenage angsty language. So Greg.
Lol.
Greg.
Yes.
Gladys sent Anastasia a text message on Sunday night to congratulate her, right, get this, for winning the election.
OMG. That is such a Gladys thing to do.
I know, right? I know, right? Total backflip. Like she's been on Annie for like weeks about this whole keeping the door shut. This whole could you believe that? And then she sends this like, what an interesting turn of events, right?
WTF.
And then, right? So like Annie's all like, I'm not even responding to that. I'm not even like, I can get that she's trying to push my buttons. I'm not even going to respond to that.
No.
And then you know what happened? Wednesday night, they had the state of origin. Queensland won. Guess what Annie did?
Sent a TikTok of her doing the weekend dance.
It's very close, Greg. She sent a text message to Gladys to say, "Sucked in, we won."
These old fogies and their text messages. Yeah. Don't they know that we TikTok and Instagram?
Yeah.
Dear me. All right. Well, look. At the very least, they didn't get so ancient, Jake, that they were texting in Latin, because that can be hard to interpret. It can be hard to interpret. And crooked, not courageous. Adani renames Australian group Bravus, mistaking it for brave. Obviously, never heard of Google.
No, certainly not Google Translate, and which is so interesting. Like when I've been on the outskirts of a process where we looked at names for a non-commercial entity that was going to be public, and had to Google in strings of names, how people might take it, how people might say it. Could the way that somebody reads that and say it be misinterpreted for something else? But nonetheless, they don't seem to have done this in this case. They don't seem to have done their research. But yes, the mining company Adani have changed their name. They've changed their name to the word
Bravus.
Yes, correct, Greg. They've changed their
I don't mind it. I think it's a pretty smart move to change their name at this stage. Adani's pretty.
It's on the nose.
It's quite slandered, isn't it? It's quite a negative name.
I agree. It's on the nose, and look, a smart company would absolutely change their name, but they probably should have checked out what that name actually meant.
Yeah, they're probably. I mean, and even though we know it's crooked, I mean, look, you're probably overestimating the amount of people who will mind that, or who will at least be fussed about it, or even try to look it up.
Well, yes, the name does, of course, in Latin translate to it translates to crooked or deformed, mercenary or assassin. Anyway,
good one. I like that one.
Yeah,
strong. Maybe we should be called the Bravus.
The Bravus,
the podcast. All right. Now, speaking of America, Jake, we're going to dive into this a little bit. Now, obviously, everyone's minds and thoughts are on America. We're not going to talk about that so much because you can listen to basically any podcast that's been released this week.
All the news,
any sort of news, they would have. An analysis, and anything that we say at the moment will have changed by the time I get a chance to edit this and upload it anyway. So let's just go through a little bit of how this is connected to Australia, because we've got two prominent politicians, Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese, who Scott Morrison obviously having quite a positive relationship with the US. Yes. Isn't coming out and saying that Donald Trump's filled with lies and that this is blah blah blah. He's just happy to work with whoever. However, Anthony Albanese, not so much. He's getting on the teenagey angsty bandwagon, Jake.
You're entirely correct. Yeah, no. Anthony Albanese, the opposition leader, slammed Scott Morrison for failing to contact President Trump and convey Australia's view that democratic process must be respected. Quote, Scott Morrison has a close relationship with President Trump. We saw that when he attended the de facto campaign rally in Ohio with President Trump. He should be contacting President Trump and conveying Australia's strong view that democratic processes must be respected.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. I'm sure he would do exactly the same thing in Scott Morrison's position.
Yeah, I guarantee you he wouldn't. I 10 billion% guarantee you that he wouldn't, because of the whole fact that you can't antagonize your allies. Even if Biden did actually come through, let's just say that if Biden came through, Biden ends up getting the presidency, we still have to work with the US until Biden is actually inaugurated in whatever it is, three or so months' time. So we still have to work with that lame duck president. And at this stage, we can't say one way or the other. Biden says he has a path to the presidency. Trump says that he's already won. So,
all right. So what would it mean? Let's throw our predicting hat into the ring. I lost my $25 on Sportsbet apparently with Trump winning. They've changed it now to I think it's $10 for Trump to win, and about $1.10 for Biden to be winning at this stage. So let's project. Let's put on our Biden hats, Jake, and our let's get our Walker frames out and put our false teeth in.
Yep.
And let's hypothesize, what would a Biden presidency mean for Australia, other than probably, I would argue, about 4 times as long as phone calls, just to try and get through the same amount of information.
Well, we might actually accomplish some talking on those phone calls.
Right. Okay.
So it's possible. It's possible that you're definitely right. We wouldn't just be sitting there going, yep. Agree. Nice to talk to you, Mr. President Biden. So it is possible that there might be some bilateral relationships established rather than just some unilateral relationships, if you get my drift.
I do.
In a Biden presidency. So there's lots of things, and there's been lots of commentary this week. Interestingly enough, there's even been a bunch of off-the-record politicians speaking to the media, saying that they, from their perspective and from their cabinet's perspective, and this is from really both sides of the two major parties, that the major prevailing hope is that Biden does win. And it's for a number of different sides. It's the premise of international affairs, free trade. It's from the global health perspective, not so much from the Liberal National Party on the Biden climate change angle. We're not necessarily, the Liberal National Party doesn't necessarily want to be pushed to do something. Essentially, some of the commentary is former intelligence chief Alan Gingle. There we are. Got his name. Who's now the president of Australia Institute of International Affairs. He says that there's a yearning across Canberra for a return to some sort of normalcy.
Yes,
in Washington.
I think that yearning has stretched quite some distance.
You might actually say that it started in the US and has proliferated outwards.
Absolutely.
Well, at least from half of the US anyway. Officials have, of course, watched with dismay as the administration ditched the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Left the World Health Organization, of course, and abandoned the Paris Accord on climate change, which actually takes effects, I think, later on this week, on Wednesday this week. So, and of course, many Australian observers believe that Biden will try to carve out spaces for cooperation, including on climate change and global health, particularly during the pandemic. But very likely there's going to be very likely a minimal change to international relations in most regards. and or foreign policy, I should say, there's still most likely going to be pretty well the same policy on China, i.e., America wants China to essentially be play on the world stage with fairly equal footing for everyone, and they're wanting to reevaluate things in that regard. But I would say that that's not likely to necessarily change at all under a Biden presidency, because essentially Biden has always had that ideal when it came to China. And as I said, there's likely to be some ructions between the US and Australia around climate policy because, of course, Biden has been relatively outspoken towards his desire for action on climate change, whereas the Liberal National Party of Australia has perhaps not been.
Yeah, so we have to be seen to be doing something. Now, you brought up China there, Jake. I was watching Emma Shortis, research fellow at MIT, on ABC this week. She said that Mike Pompeo was recently in Darwin and basically said to Australia that we're going to have to choose between the US and China when it comes to these US, when it comes to the China-Australia trade relationships. Now, that has been really, really put into the forefront this week with China flexing its muscles around apparently 7 key Australian products, including wine, lobster, sugar, coal, and timber. These trades are worth $6 billion a year in an overall $1.3 trillion economy. So, this is we are going to have those really strong relationships with the US over these matters. And, It's interesting because as much as Biden is putting himself back into the Paris Accord on climate change as a matter of urgency, according to the news, it seems to me like a lot of Americans actually thought it was quite a good thing that they got out of it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and economically and relationship wise with international countries as well.
Yeah, I mean, as we have said many, many times, when it comes to American politics, just about everything is multifaceted.
Yes.
So, I mean, ultimately, what his priorities actually are, if he actually gains the presidency, remains to be seen. He's named a whole series of policies within his first 100 days. But I would suggest that, a lot of the rhetoric around, perhaps Americans not liking things like the Paris Accords or the World Health Organization were likely heavily tainted by rhetoric from the president that, preceded the removal of those, of the US from those organizations. So we will just have to see.
All right.
We will just have to see.
Let's keep this China theme going, Jake. We've got a Chinese Australian community figure who was pictured with Federal Minister Alan Tudge donating $30,000 in COVID-19 relief to a Melbourne hospital in June, has become the first Australian charged with a foreign interference offence. My understanding is that this was a new set of rules that came in about 2018. Yep. You've got that on the notes as well. That's good. And so that was my understanding. It came in about 2018. So talk me through a few of the details of this one.
Honestly, Greg, I would love to. There's not a lot.
That's good. Let's keep it short and sharp, Jake.
Essentially, the gentleman, Dai San Duong, known as Sonny to his friends, and in that press conference that you mentioned with Alan Tudge, who at that time was I think he was the acting minister for immigration and multicultural affairs at that
nice.
particular
good
thing.
Memory. Yeah, right. Nice work.
Memory / I had it written on the notes.
Nice.
But he
I won't tell anyone.
That struggling was me. We tried to find it in the notes. Interestingly enough, Alan Tudge referred to him very affectionately. A lot of the community leaders referred to Sonny very affectionately. Alan Tudge, I should say, has not been implicated in any wrongdoing here.
No,
nothing suggested in here. But Duong is the president of the Oceania Federation of Chinese organizations from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. He is, by all accounts, a very effective community leader. but he has been charged following a year-long investigation by the Counter Foreign Interference Task Force led by the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, ASIO.
Yes.
And the Australian Federal Police, working with partners into the man's relationship with a foreign intelligence agency, likely China. So, he's been charged at this stage. We're looking at likely mid next year before we hear anything more.
Okay. So there's the spying, yeah?
That's I believe, the alleged offence.
Yes, the alleged offence is spying. Yeah, okay. Manfred Maximus on Facebook, or YouTube, sorry, has said, so Biden is the president now. Greetings from Europe. No, Manfred, Biden is not the president now. We were just putting on our Biden is the president now hat.
Yeah,
to have a discussion about
because
what that might look like.
We know what a continuation of the Trump presidency would mean, which is who knows.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, more of who knows. At least with Biden, we might get some sort of predictability. Now, Jake, we touched on it a little bit earlier. These Australia versus China tensions, they're getting larger and larger. As we see China's economy leading to some decisions about who its trading partners are as it recovers from COVID-19.
Yep.
We saw its trajectory going gangbusters. Apparently that excites me too much. Of it going gangbusters prior to COVID-19. Now, as it comes out of this economic, mess that COVID-19 brings along with it, it's making some decisions about who its trading partners are going to be. Australia looks like it's increasingly on the chopping block for some of these trades. We had, what have we had already? We've had some barley issues.
We had wine issues as well.
Wine issues. There was some meat in there, wasn't there?
There was, yes. Some beef exports.
Some beef, that's right. Some beef exports. So we've had barley, we've had wine, we've had beef exports. Now we're looking at.
Before we go any further, Greg.
No, Jake. I'm into this. I'm so deep into the China situation, Jake. I can't get out.
I'm sorry. You talked about beef and barley and wine, and I just realised how hungry I am.
I thought you were going to say, I realized I left the oven on and you were going to have to leave me here talking. And I was like, I've done all my talking points about China, Jake. This is as smart as I can possibly sound. Yeah, look, no doubt you're hungry, Jake, because as we mentioned earlier, this is the pouch up late.
Yes, but it just seemed like a really great pairing.
It is.
Yep.
It is. It does sound very good, doesn't it? Yeah. It reminds me of my time in the Hunter Valley 2 weekends ago. All right, so let's get back into it. So China's coming out of its little COVID funk. Now you've got me coming up with different adjectives for this, Jake. I had it all worked out. And however, there is some conflict around who their trading partners are going to be. Tell us what's happening at the moment, and can I get some cheap lobsters?
Well, I mean, that's the question. A lot of lobster catchers, lobsterians, lobster farmers,
Jake. Yeah, they grow from the ground, similar to a pineapple.
Exactly. Yes. They're also 100% fruity. So look, we are in some interesting. We're in for some interesting times in Australia. Now, this wasn't an official notice from Chinese officials. What seems to have happened here is that someone in China, and we don't know who, and we don't know what position they might hold, but someone in China has spoken to Chinese media, and they have said that they are going to halt, that China is going to halt Australian wine, lobster, sugar, coal, copper, barley, and timber. That's a lot of stuff. And that's a lot of stuff that Australia makes a lot of money out of.
Yeah.
In terms of our export dollars, there's lots of small businesses, particularly in the lobster and the wine industry. There's lots of large businesses in terms of the coal and copper industry, and there's lots of farmers. Again, the wine, lobster, sugar, and barley industry. So it's a scary time for these exporters, and the Trade Minister Simon Birmingham has reached out to his counterpart again. Famously, Simon Birmingham has not been able to speak to his counterpart in China.
No.
For several months.
He doesn't have the NBN. He can't Zoom.
That's the issue. That is 100% the issue. No, look, basically, China doesn't want a bar of it. China doesn't care.
No, they don't want They don't want anything from Australia at the moment.
Exactly,
It's sad to see them flexing their muscles this way, particularly during COVID-19. So obviously there's some talk that a lot of these lobster farmers and some of these other industries are going to have to be laying off staff, which means that they're laying off staff in what could be potentially a flourishing industry during a pandemic. And where do those other people go to get work if there's not a lot of exports happening? There is some silver linings though. Some commentators are saying, look, these are $6 billion a year industries within the context of a $1.3 trillion economy. We can be creative. We can be creative with where we're exporting and who we're exporting to. I don't know. It doesn't sound very optimistic for me.
I think that we're talking analyst speak there because
we've just got to grow hemp, Jake. I don't know why we're not growing hemp.
Well,
are we growing hemp?
If you're a lobster farmer, we are growing a little bit of hemp, but
Well, we need to grow more, Jake. We have a whole desert.
So much.
Hemp grows wonderfully in the desert.
It sure does. I don't know. That's a great question.
I don't know either.
For Hemp
anyway.
International. Look, this is really a fraught subject because ultimately the people who this affects were told some months ago by the Trade Minister Simon Birmingham to do everything they possibly could to diversify their trade, to try and find other trading partners that they could export their stuff to. And potentially, these industries such as sugar and timber and
coal.
Well, coal, I think, was always due to happen, but the not necessarily small industries, but the industries that are sort of subsidiary to our major exports, which is coal essentially, and iron ore and such. They very likely just didn't think it was going to impact them. They probably looked at the international markets and said, "Hey, we're cheaper by a lot. I'm sure that they're going to continue to purchase from us," and it just seems that they have been blindsided. But the real blindsiding here, I would say, is that China has used their state media, the China Daily and some others, to essentially let to the Global Times was the other one.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, that's their communication, right?
Well, they could always. I mean, they can always just use their own words. They can call the Trade Minister, they can call the Prime Minister and say, "Hey, FYI, retribution, bro."
Yeah. Well, they basically said so. Australia will pay tremendously for its misjudgment. Its misjudgment being the putting forward of the case, the coronavirus inquiry. Now, which doesn't mention China at all. However, it's sort of writing on the wall in that case. Read between the lines in that case. I would my own view of this, which no one should pay any credence to whatsoever. It's just the conclusion that I've come to based on the information that I've got at the moment. Is that the positive thing that I could possibly see coming out of it, well, the way forward, is that during this coronavirus inquiry, who's running that one? The World
Health Organization.
Health Organization.
Oh, it's one of the subsidiary organizations.
That's right. That's right. It's the World Trade Organization.
No, it's the World Health Authority, I think it's called.
Yeah, you're right. It's the World Health Authority. Now, the World Health Authority, they finish it up, right? And they say, okay, actually, you know what, China, you did a pretty good job of the whole thing. You actually let countries know when they needed to when you needed to let them know. Everything's hunky dory. Yes, it did originate there, but everything's hunky dory. We didn't find any evidence of wrongdoing. And the reputation of China starts to grow again, and they jump on the back of that to say, okay, Australia, we've flexed our muscles a little bit. You naughty boys, don't do it again. Give us your wine and your barley and your timber and your coal.
Yeah. I think what actually they are looking for here is concessions on trade, using this essentially to as a bargaining chip. So what I mean by that is I think they're saying, hey, look, at any time we can cut off your trade.
Okay,
we get this stuff from anywhere.
That's
okay?
right.
We get it from you because A, you're close, B, we like you, and C, you're normally quiet. Okay.
Yeah. We need them more than they need us.
Exactly.
Need us is the message, isn't it? That's
exactly.
That's
so I mean, look, what I'd like to hear happening as someone who likes to talk about these types of political issues. What I'd like to hear,
can't have barley and can't have wine and doesn't eat beef and
those sorts of things.
Yep.
I
can't have lobster.
Love my beef. No, what I'd love to hear, and this is echoed by just about every Australian political commentator, is that the Prime Minister needs to have a conversation with Xi Jinping, essentially around what's happening here. Okay, you seem to be trying to cripple us economically.
Yeah,
we need to have a bit of a conversation here, a best friends chat, if you will, and figure out how we can sort this out. Now, the logical.
Why hasn't he done that?
Well, I think that he probably understands that the logical thing that China is going to say is, well, we were pretty pissed off when you decided to, stab us in the back around the coronavirus. Hey, it seems that we were doing everything that we possibly could, and you kind of stabbed us in the back by calling us out and giving us a bad name in the international community, despite the fact that we were doing everything humanly possible to protect our citizens and the world's citizens.
Absolutely, but we have our set of morals here in Australia. We have our set of values here in Australia, and we hold those in high regard. I think the Prime Minister has a lot of backing with this one from the general public and also from his colleagues and, like you say, from a lot of other commentators that I've heard as well.
From a sheer numbers point, Greg, he can have 25 million people behind him, and that's
absolutely.
1.34 billion people behind him.
And there's actually a South Australian Lobster Association, and he's ticked them off.
He sure has.
He
sure has. Well, look,
we got them on our side.
The other thing that the Prime Minister can do is ensure that every single meal from here on out is surf and turf.
Oh, absolutely.
Australian beef, bit of Australian lobster, and a whole bunch of barley and wine.
Free surf and turf for everyone. All right.
Amazing.
All right. Speaking of someone who's probably never surfed, or never turfed, I don't know. Someone who's never surfed in an ocean and never turfed a ball. Clive Palmer.
Just not sure where to go from there. Are we going to be sued? Great question.
I said probably. Allegedly. Allegedly never surfed. Allegedly never turfed a ball. Clive Palmer, billionaire miner Clive Palmer, has lost his High Court challenge against Western Australia's coronavirus border closure. My understanding is there's like 50 other challenges that he's got going on, though. Is that right?
He does have quite a few. And, of course, he was lodging that High Court challenge against the border closure at the same time that that his political party, or the political party that he owns, UAP, exactly, United Australia Party, was garnering an election loss in Queensland.
Yes.
Significant. I think he got
significant loss.
He
knows how to spend money, though.
Votes.
Oh, Clive.
Spent $4 million.
Give me a few HomePod minis, Clive. At least you get something for your money.
Well, he actually doesn't, because with 11,000 votes, even if one of those electorates, and let's just say, so his wife was going for one of the Gold Coast electorates, even if that
Anna,
I think her name is Anne or Anna, you have to get, I think it's around 2.5% of the vote before you start getting a percentage of the amount that you spent back.
Okay.
So it is extraordinarily unlikely that he's going to see any of that $4 million left, leaving him with only a couple of billion to continue running the rest of his life. Anyway, so yes, he did fail in this.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I know. How are you supposed to get by on a couple of bill, right? Am I right? No. So yes, the billionaire miner Clive Palmer has lost his High Court challenge against the Western Australian coronavirus border closure. The High Court challenge kicked off after Mr. Palmer was denied an exemption to allow him to enter Western Australia in May of this year. Can you remember May? I mean, seriously, can you remember?
I do.
My birthday's in May. I don't remember May.
Yeah.
I remember
No, I remember the bushfires, and I still can't believe that they were this year.
Ended in February, about the same time that coronavirus started. I can't remember May. Anyway, but
Clive is relentless. He's got other cases against Western Australia as well. So it's just never going to end.
I mean, essentially, this was all around. I mean, if you read if you read into the journalism that's been done around this topic, this all stemmed from the fact that Clive Palmer lost a significant amount of investment in a couple of mining interests that he had in Western Australia.
Yeah, right.
Thanks to the actions of the Western Australian government. So essentially, he wasn't able to make back on his investment, and is feeling quite sore about that, and
going
has
to bankrupt a whole state.
Exactly. Well, that was an actual outcome of a previous case, which may in fact make it to the High Court in the not too distant future as well.
Now, Jake, we're going to we touched on this a little bit a few weeks ago, and we said we might circle back.
Yeah.
As is the parlance of our times, to this one. This was, and it seems to be a very timely story. I'm starting, it's sort of almost like bushfire season again. I'm starting to get little notifications popping up on my watch and my phone every now and again about little spot fires that are happening here in the Blue Mountains. Certainly nerve-wracking experiences, despite it being 11 degrees or something like that. There was recently the commission for... what have we got here? The report into the apocalyptic 2019-2020 bushfires was released. It was done quite quickly. As part of the Royal Commission, it has made 80 recommendations. Jake, give us some of the highlights. Some of the highlights of this. And what do I need to go out and buy some new things for my house? Do I need to go out and buy some new things for my garden for this one?
Well, if your house doesn't have a helicopter that enables you to quickly escape the area,
I'll get one of them. I'll write that down.
Have to purchase
helicopter.
You want to think about? Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
A water slide as well.
Water slide. Well, apparently you're not meant to go into your pool during a fire.
Well, that's absolutely...
It's one of the worst places you can go, which is quite counterintuitive.
Counterintuitive, absolutely. But, water does tend to boil.
Yes, apparently it does.
Particularly when a large amount of heat inundates it for a significant amount of time. Yeah, look, around 80 recommendations, sweeping recommendations the Royal Commission had suggested. So among the highlights are the formation of a new disaster resilience and recovery agency to champion resilience across the nation, which is, essentially toughening us up, ensuring that we are, doing the things that we need to do prior to each summer in order to prepare for that summer, and ensuring that we are able to, if we have a bushfire, able to respond to it nice and quickly. Another one of them is a review of the Commonwealth's Fair Work Act to make sure that employers don't discriminate against volunteer firefighters, because of course we did hear about many cases of people who were in sustained states of operation as volunteer firefighters for hundreds of days on end. During the bushfires, and as a consequence, some of them, and you understand the mindset from these volunteer firefighters, because if they walk away and go back to work, they're walking away from their friends who have also been there for hundreds of days, and essentially they're making that area less safe for their mates.
Yeah, so that's right.
It's going to be very difficult for them. Imagine that's the sort of thing that will haunt their nightmares for years to come.
Yeah, well, it is, isn't it? And they're struggling to get some new recruits this year. Yep. They've said based on the last year, the 2019-2020 bushfires, which has had a huge impact on our preparedness for this year as well. But so also somewhat understandable. I'm sure we can see both sides of the coin there.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, what else have I got to do? What else have we got to do?
We want to
get some new planes. Are we getting some new planes?
We actually are. The Royal Commission asked for a series of the aerial bombers, and essentially a national stockpile that can be moved around based on availability or requirements. Around the various states that are regularly hit by the bushfires. They want to speed up the development of a nationally consistent fire danger rating system, because of course it was really interesting.
Yep.
Really interesting to hear. Queensland is in catastrophic, New South Wales is in dire, and Victoria is in, oh my gosh, guys, freak out.
Freak out, yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's got to be some. There's got to be some consistency there, doesn't there? I mean, especially with, one of the larger bushfires that we had. I forget the name of it, but it crossed the border. So it crosses the border from New South Wales to Victoria. If you've got a totally different system of warnings, then if it changes sides and you're sort of having these communications with the people who have already been doing it, you can add to some confusion. So surely limiting confusion.
Well,
it's a good idea.
In such fraught situations, you want to be limiting the use of jargon. You want to have consistency and standardization as much as humanly possible so that you can communicate in similar terms. Another one of the requirements is can create nationally consistent air quality advice to develop forecasting capabilities. Because, of course, we saw tens upon tens of days in Sydney, as well as in Greater Brisbane and in Greater Victoria, where air quality was so poor it was among the worst in the world.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, there was a few days there where Sydney was so bad.
Indeed, people were reminded to stay indoors.
I had to go to work in it.
And then there was coronavirus, and you didn't have to go to work in that.
Yeah, Our 5-year-old daughter didn't see outside for months.
Yeah, no.
Okay, and I also remember that we had to. I think what was her name? Celeste Barber. Didn't she raise some phenomenal amount of money? Like, is this something?
$50 million from memory.
Yeah. Now that legally had to go to the RFS, but I suppose I wonder.
It had to go specifically to the RFS of, I think it was New South Wales. I can't remember. The
RFS of New South Wales. You're absolutely right. So I presume, I don't know. It'd be good if some of that money could be, I suppose, spent on things that would help get some of these things across the line.
Well,
do we know?
It turns out that one of the recommendations, Greg, was to create a single national scheme to regulate charitable fundraising.
Oh, look at that. Hey, but dang, I can read their minds. Nice work. Go team. Go Team Pouch.
And actually, Greg, talking about reading minds,
yes,
more support for people suffering mental health impacts from disasters.
Well, that
makes
a lot of sense.
Correlate, but
yeah. Well, that goes hand in hand with the resilience, doesn't it? I mean, look, you go through a disaster like that, and one thing to sort of have your house destroyed or something like that, but to also have to, if you've got a house that is absolutely designed for someone with a disability or someone with mental health issues, or you've got that communication and you've got that everything is safe and ready to go, and then that gets destroyed, to rebuild something like that is huge. That takes years and years and years. So, not to mention dealing with insurance companies and all that sort of stuff. Was there anything about insurance companies in there?
There probably was among the rest of them, but it just wasn't among the more prominent
highlights.
Ones. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. So what's the commitment here? Do we know what the commitment is from the government?
Look, at this stage, we don't have any real term commitments. We don't have any funding provided, although the Prime Minister has been, fairly vociferous in his support of the Royal Commission and has said that he would ensure that the Cabinet reviewed any recommendations that were put out. So you can expect that there will be some movement in that direction. There was, of course, a very large amount of money that was committed towards bushfire relief and the national disaster following it. I think there was something in the whereabouts of $200 to $400 million that was committed to that. And it's possible that some of that still exists and might be able to be funneled into programs that would address those many of those recommendations. But invariably, those recommendations have to be reviewed by the organisations within both the federal and state governments that oversee those areas. And they need to understand what the impact to their business or to their services are going to be by addressing them. Same as any Royal Commission, they have their findings. We need to understand what is the impact going to be to us. How do we actually interpret these findings and these recommendations? That sort of stuff. It's the business of government that needs to take a look at it, and then we'll figure out exactly how our lives are going to change as a result of those findings.
Absolutely, I don't see why you wouldn't take on any of those. But then again, I'm not a politician. It certainly would be good for appearances if they came out and said we're going to implement every single one of these.
It's very likely. And it's actually, to your point, Greg, it's very likely that the Prime Minister, given the shellacking that he took in the response to his little sojourn over to Hawaii, during the bushfires, and the backlash that he took as a result of that. It is very likely that the Prime Minister would want to appear very strong on this, given that he's no longer doing the daily press briefings for coronavirus. It's likely that the direction that the Prime Minister will give to the public service is, you need to find a way to make this work. I want you to come back to me in X days and tell me how we are going to adopt this, how much money it's going to require, and what savings you're going to make in order to offset that money that we're going to need to spend.
Absolutely, it would certainly be good PR for for Scott Morrison and his team.
Indeed.
Anything else, Jake? Anything else you need to get off your chest? I'm here.
Oh, just look how great these mugs are.
They are very good, aren't they?
I love how they're just so well put together. As mugs, I mean, mugs aren't that hard to make. I mean, there's millions of mugs getting produced every single day. But I've got to say, out of all the mugs that I've ever seen, this is probably one of the best.
They are very sturdy. If you'd like a mug or a sticker, send me an email. We'll play mug or sticker. Send an email to thepouchthepodcast@gmail.com. We'll play pouch or sticker. No one won no one won mug or sticker this week, Jake. Apparently no one wants a sticker or a mug. But if you do want one, send me an email. We got a fair few stickers on the go. I'm more than happy to whack them in an envelope. Put a stamp on it. Lick that stamp.
Our new friend Crispin, he's definitely deserving of a mug or a sticker.
He's getting a sticker, Jake. He gets a sticker as joining part of the pouch. Yeah, he gets access to extended episodes, exclusive posts, and also gets some merch there as well, which is pretty cool. So check us out. The Patreon is patreon.com/thepouchthepodcast. And Jake, when our listeners have finished trying to figure out how they're going to incorporate their own shellacka-lackin' joke into the podcast, what would you like them to do?
Well, I would love it, Greg. I would love it if they could subscribe to the show, if they're not already doing so, and rate and review. It would be fantastic. By rating and reviewing, you help us to get in front of the faces of the various people surfing through their various podcast aggregators.
Absolutely. And you know what, Jake, if you want to share the love, you can do so by telling your friends, families, and foes to head to thepouchthepodcast.com, where they can choose their favorite podcast player of choice and subscribe that way, or just punch in the Pouch the Podcast to any of the socials, any of them at all, Jake. Google Drive, Snapchat, Google Docs, TikTok. No, we don't do TikTok. Just punch it in, and if we don't have one, then we're not there.
And you've discovered where we're not.
That's right. There's also links to all of that sort of stuff in the description below. And I'll put a link to where you could buy your own mug or sticker if you like in the description below as well. But Jake, thank you so much for taking the time off from US politics, for taking the time to chat with me this week about all things China, about all things Clive Palmer, about all things bush fire related. Still plenty of news happening here in Australia, despite what ABC News would have you believe. And they've been playing this Biden speech, which happened at like 4 p.m. this afternoon on repeat for some strange reason. I'm like, surely there's other things happening.
No.
And apparently not. But we proved them wrong, Jake. We proved them wrong. We have brought you the stories that happened this week in Australia. Please look them up if you would like some more details, and feel free to send us an email at thepouchthepodcast.com. Nope. Don't do that. Send us an email at thepouchthepodcast@gmail.com. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, Jake. You have a Sunday off.
I'm going to have such a great Sunday. So my chooks have lived in their chook pen now for about 3 years.
Right. Where were they before that?
Well, not in existence, I suppose.
In your house?
No, we moved to this house about 3 years ago, and one of the first things that I built was a chook shed.
Right.
So they've been living there, caking it with their excrement for some time, and I'm digging through that excrement to improve the drainage situation in there, which is frankly one of the greatest things in the world.
It really is, Jake, and I hope you enjoy that Sunday.
I'm so going to.
I'm sure there's a parallel to our podcast there or something that I could draw. But anyway, all right, Jake. Something about digging through chook poop to get to the good stuff. Thank you so much for chatting with me. Thank you so much for keeping me focused on Australian news and politics. And I look forward to chatting with you again about the same time next week.